this the car where you can get vaccinated? Can anyone guess where this quote comes from? It's what our reporters heard when they went out to Gamlegården, a district in Kristianstad, a city in the south of Sweden. Gamlegården is on the police list of economical disadvantaged areas in Sweden, one of many. And it's an area that we definitely been monitoring for many years, but where the majority of the residents doesn't really know who we are and don't trust us. And even worse, they only expect us to come there to report on crime, attempted murder, and gunfire, because that's mainly what we and other media has done in the past. So this quote was a clear sign that we need to be more present in an area like Gamlegården, and not just to report from there, but to let all of our employees at the local radio station go there at regular basis, work from there for some time, get to know the area, make new connections, and get an understanding of the people living there. We got to earn their trust and care about what's happening in their everyday lives, and not just when something bad happens. Because if we aim to reflect the whole of society in our journalism, it's our mission and it's our duty to meet people for whom and with whom we produce radio. Well, this is what they saw, and you can see it outside from here as well. This is our Popup car that we took to Gamlegården and stayed there for 2 weeks. And this car is equipped so that we can edit our material from the car without needing to go back and forth to a radio station. And it even has a microwave. And this car will allow us to increase our journalistic presence throughout the country, bring in new voices, ideas and approaches to our radio production. Thoughts and ideas that we wouldn't have come up with ourselves. New perspectives, building trust. And our goal is to be on location in all 290 municipalities in every 4-month period. And here are just some of the places that we went to last year.
Vi på Sveriges Radio bevakar hela Sverige.
Men vi vill att ännu fler röster ska höras.
För att ge dig som lyssnar berättelser.
Med många olika perspektiv
satsar vi på att göra radio på ännu fler platser i landet.
Och just nu så är vi på plats i Olofström,
I Torup,
i Härjedalen,
Kramfors.
Vi finns på plats i Töreboda,
i Nässjö, i Tynnered i Göteborg,
I Nyköping.
Storumans kommun.
Läs mer om var du hittar oss
på sverigesradio.se.
Actually, this work ought to be pretty easy for us since it's based on Swedish Radios vision, more voices and more powerful stories for a greater understanding. And this vision is only 3 years old, but it already permeates very much of what we do. It's concrete, it's applicable to our daily work, it's really clear and simple. For example, it could mean staying curious and always trying to find new voices, not just the ones that automatically come to mind. Providing feedback to my colleagues and listening extra carefully to what others have to say. And our vision is very much about offering the audience multiple perspectives in everything we do. In the voices they hear, the topics we cover, the angles, and the perspectives. It's a matter of survival for us. And what's at stake if we don't offer many different perspectives? Well, then we won't be chosen by more people. We won't maintain our high level of trust or earn new trust in new audiences. We won't reflect the everyday lives of different people all over Sweden, and we won't be seen as innovative. Well, speaking of different perspectives, who are we then? My name is Julia Blomberg, and I'm here today with my 2 colleagues, Jalin von Celsing and Susanne Fatta, and we'll talk about how Swedish Radio works with diversity and inclusion, or as we call it, different perspectives. And we want to share our opportunities, successes, but also challenges with you today, because we have those, just as everyone does. For the last 1.5 years, I work as diversity and inclusion coordinator at our HR department. But I started off as an intern 14 years ago, and I mainly worked as a journalist with focus on teens and young adults, a target audience that's really close to my heart. To introduce young people to public service content, it's also a big part of working with inclusion. And that's what I did when I was project manager for Musikhjälpen. Musikhjälpen is Swedish Radio's biggest music and fundraising event that aims to engage people from all over Sweden to raise awareness and money for a good cause. Jerry.
I'm Geraldine, and I head our recruitment team. Aside from many, many years in recruiting, I've also run a market research agency in Ghana about 10 years ago. This may sound as a stretch from HR, but I find it really useful to this day to have been working with target groups in a marketing setting. And it has improved my ability to attract and recruit talent in many other settings as well. Recruiting in Ghana also made me really aware of the fact that I wasn't as culturally sensitive as I thought I was. I'm a Swedish, Kenyan, Romanian, so I assumed that I was less prone to bias than many others. It turns out, though, that I was human. Quite the shocker, right? I had to make an effort to understand CVs and interview styles that were really different from what I was used to back from working in Sweden. And these experiences also helped me to this day. Suzanne, tell us a bit about yourself.
Yeah, my name is Suzanne. I'm known to the listeners as the voice they woke up to for many, many years here in Malmö, because I worked at the local radio station here. Right now, I work at HR together with Julia and Geraldine at our in-house learning and education unit called Swedish Radio Academy, where I educate in bias, in inclusion, and in demography.
So as you hear, we all use the diversity in our own experiences in our different roles today. And that's especially luckily when combined in our diversity and inclusion team, as we are. And if you want to work with diversity and inclusion, it's not enough to attend an inspirational talk, as you all know. There is no quick fix. It takes hard strategic work across the whole organization. And here is our strategy. Swedish Radio has focused on diversity issues for a long time, but the challenge has been working in separate islands and the lack of coordination and the difficulty of having an overall grasp of what other departments are doing. But since last year, we worked with a new strategy based on 3 interrelated focus areas. And here are they. To deliver credible and impartial content to the audience with many different perspectives every day. To consciously recruit people with skills and perspectives that we need. And to ensure that we all contribute to an inclusive workplace culture where everyone feels seen, heard, and respected. And they are all connected and equally important to reach best possible effect. And to streamline our efforts, I have the role of coordinator at a strategic level, and I head a work group with representatives from all over the organization, from all the focus areas. And our mission is to sync everything that is being done to create collaborations and synergies, evaluate, set goals and action plans, and very important, to communicate what is being done so we can enhance the knowledge and dedication of our employees. And we are working with this strategy during this charter period until 2025, and are monitoring along the way how things are going, if we are reaching the effects that we want, and what we need to change and develop. And shortly we'll dive into what we actually do within these focus areas. But first, Susanne.
In 2005, I got a phone call. It was a no-caller ID. I did not answer my phone, because in my world, when somebody calls with a hidden number, that means bad news. It's never good. The person kept calling and calling, and I kept not answering my phone. A friend of mine told me, Susan, you have to answer your phone. It's a woman from Swedish Radio, and she wants to get a hold of you. Little did I know that that phone call would change my life and is one of the reasons why I stand here today. I will tell you the rest of this story in a little while, but first, I want to stick with the numbers, the hidden numbers, that we need to find in order to make more relevant journalism. Jack Welch, former CEO of General Electric, said, "If the rate of change on the outside exceeds the rate of change on the inside, the end is near." That goes for journalism as well, actually. One way of knowing the change outside is demography, the study of statistics such as births, death, income, or migration, which illustrates the changing structure of human population. Knowing your population is the key to relevant journalism today. The past 2 years, I have educated journalists in our company on how to actually get the statistics on demography and study the demographic of Sweden's population. For instance, this is Sweden, our tall, beautiful country. And we have different challenges in this country in every way. Sweden has a population of 10.2 million. 2 million of them, 20% of the population, is born in other countries. First-generation immigrants. Their children are not represented in these numbers. The most common country of birth for foreign-born is Syria, followed by Iraq. Finland was for many years the most common country of birth for foreign-born, but is today the third most common country, followed by Poland and Iran. These numbers are quickly changing due to the current situation in the world, of course, and we will probably see Ukraine amongst this crowd. Showing that numbers have a past due date and change, well, change comes fast. When I ask my journalist colleagues which is the most common form of housing in Sweden, most of them answer tenancy. I guess it's because journalists live in larger cities in Sweden, and their gut feeling is telling them, answer tenancy. The right answer is small houses with ownership. So why is housing interesting for journalists to know? Because when people's electric bills goes up due to oil and gas prices, we need to understand that 40% of our population's economy will be affected or suffer from it. But are numbers and statistics really enough to make relevant journalism? No. Numbers can often become irrelevant journalism as well. Recently, we had a news about child poverty in Sweden. Fresh statistics were presented to all our local newsrooms. Empty swings, and politicians saying, we're working on it. And we also heard a lot of social workers saying it's terrible. We have all seen these news, empty swings, presented with numbers without any thought or new perspectives. Numbers, statistics, and demography is our navigators, our step one, but we still need to do the work. We're journalists. Step two is asking those numbers some questions. Why are we telling this story? Where do we go, and who do we talk to? Who will give our listeners new perspectives? Is there a new story we can tell that has never been told before? Is there a voice that we never hear in this context? Who does this even concern? When we do that, we no longer have empty swings on playgrounds, but we have humans, we have people, voices. The girl in the picture is Alma. She loves her after-school activity at her local library. My colleague Josephine did a beautiful constructive journalism on a very delicate subject like poverty. So back to my story, which is connecting on knowing your demography. I finally answered my phone. The woman behind the no-caller ID was Ulla Svensson. She was headhunting young local stars in Malmö, and Swedish Radio was launching a new youth channel called Din Gata. There I am. Your street. Me, Ehsan Nourouzi, and Salman Bakhtiari got the opportunity to create something groundbreaking and relevant. Din Gata was created because Malmö had a population with a lot of young people with backgrounds from all over the world, and many of them had no clue what Swedish Radio was or public service. Me and my two headhunted colleagues had a similar background and shared the same perspectives as our main listener target group. And that's why Din Gata became a great success. Ehsan, the guy in the blue shirt, he didn't answer his phone either when Ulla called. This is just a selection of people whose voices have been heard in Swedish Radio recently. Different stories, perspective, feelings, opinions. But we need to match that diversity that we have in society with the diversity we have in our own company. Who works in our company is a big part of what kind of journalism we actually want to do. Who we recruit is the key. And Geraldine, you know more about that than me.
We all know that diversified groups achieve better results and are more innovative than homogeneous groups. In our case, our target group is all of Sweden. So as Suzanne just said, we can't really achieve our journalistic mission if we don't have a blend of perspective contributing to our content. Diversity and inclusion is increasingly important among young people in general, and definitely among our employees as well. The sense of urgency is growing. In a recruiting process, it becomes clear just how attitudes and actions can result in us becoming a more diverse company or a more homogeneous one. So I want to walk you through just how we work with recruiting, what areas we provide training in, what pitfalls do we identify and discuss, and which behaviors we encourage. Because every recruitment step presents a new opportunity to increase diversity. Our starting point is when we've identified a need to recruit. We perform a brief gap analysis where we investigate what skills, networks, languages we need to have collectively to achieve goals. What do we already have on board in our group, and what do we need to fill up on? We keep in mind that what is missing in one department or one newsroom might not be missing in another context. We also study demographics to provide direction in recruitments. Who are we targeting? And this is a concrete example of how a tool used for improving editorial content, as Suzanne has been talking about, also can help us recruit. When we advertise, we remind ourselves that wording is really important. We know, for example, that long lists of requirements can result in the number of female applicants decreasing. We know also, and have experience from, that requiring a driving license can sometimes exclude talented candidates who don't have the means of obtaining a license. And also, this requirement has been proven to be quite unnecessary in some urban environments as well. We also pay attention to how our requirements, when piled on top of each other, really limit the size and range of possible applicants for a role. We encourage hiring managers to make their own Venn diagram, where each demand is represented by a circle, to just visualize how a talent pool shrinks when you place one circle or one demand on top of each other. We also use search as a tool to broaden our applicant base. We don't hesitate to reach out to those who we know don't have Swedish Radio as a top-of-mind workplace, and we reach out to individuals as well as communities. When we select candidates to interview, we talk about being mindful of our own biases and gaps in knowledge. We can't assume that we fully understand a candidate's set of skills, for example, if they've worked in other countries or industries than the ones that we intuitively understand. And we have to compensate for this lack of contextual understanding by leaning in and digging deeper, asking more questions, and not falling into the trap of selecting those whose backgrounds we more easily and intuitively understand. We also know that many perspectives aren't visible in an application or a CV, meaning that we have to make a conscious effort in finding the layers. An interview is a conversation where we try to understand. Here too, our company vision can help us. We aspire to have more voices and a greater understanding. And we interview to understand, not to find fault or let our assumptions get the best of us. One way we do this very concretely is by asking this specific question in our interviews. Which unique experiences and perspectives do you think that you can bring to the table that no one else can? This helps us understand instead of assume what a person feels that they can contribute with. It helps us discover languages and networks, areas of knowledge, and angles that this person also explicitly wants to make use of in their work. When interviewing, we also remind ourselves and our hiring managers, once again, of our biases, how easy it is to attribute characteristics to a person based on their appearance or based on similarities with ourselves or any other aspects that are completely unrelated to what we're actually aiming to achieve in a recruitment. These are just some of the tools we use to increase diversity using our recruitment process. We want to offer our jobs to the right people for the right reasons. At the same time, we wish that this was all it took, because this actually assumes that people with all sorts of backgrounds and perspectives are aware of us and actually want to work with us. But we need to reach out much earlier than during our recruitment process. And we do. I'll give you 2 examples of our work in this area. One is that we visit high schools and collaborate with several schools of journalism and have colleagues throughout the organization that go out and visit schools to build recognition locally, especially where we know that Swedish Radio has lower listener figures. And this year, we also launched a trainee program where we're recruiting talents for our minority language newsrooms. And the people we choose based on their language skills, their drives, and their potential. And we offer them 9 months of paid journalist training in collaboration with a journalism school in Sweden. And this is definitely not the first program that we've implemented of the kind, but so far it's the most ambitious in terms of content and length. So these are a few examples of our proactive work, and I'll let Suzanne talk a bit more about what we need to do both before and after we recruit.
When did you know you wanted to become a journalist? I've been asked that question many times. When I was growing up, journalism was nothing I even imagined doing. And I guess it's because I didn't really know what a journalist actually did. A doctor, yes. A teacher, yes. But a journalist, no, never. As I was working at Ingata, a lot of shootings with a deadly outcome was happening in Malmö. Our listeners turned to us, to Ingata, with their fears, their stories, and their opinions on the violence. I remember this time very clearly. It was during that time I knew, wait, Susan, you're making journalism. You're asking questions. You're making people tell their stories to you. And that's what I wanted to do. I knew I was at the right place. I left Ingata and got my education in the newsroom at our local radio station, P4 Malmöhus, here in Malmö. I started working as a reporter, leaving my safe space at Din Gata for a more challenging environment, where not everybody had my perspectives on things. I sometimes experienced minority stress for being one of few people of color. I was not feeling included, and many times it was quite lonely. And this is a common problem in newsrooms around the world. And we at Swedish Radio had a wake-up call 2 years ago when this happened. Vems SR? Who's Swedish Radio? 4 journalists at our company wrote an open letter about the situation they experienced due to lack of representation, inclusion, and knowledge about racism. Media covered the story, and a big debate about Swedish Radio's ability to make journalism with different perspectives and radio for everyone was discussed. This is exactly why we have to remind ourselves over and over and over again. If you're not actively and consciously include in your organization, there is a great risk that you unknowingly exclude. We were working with inclusion and diversity for a long time in Swedish Radio, but this made us look up and turn it up a notch. We needed to do some work. Diversity alone does not lead to success. It has 2 friends, inclusion and bias. Diversity is having a seat at the table. Inclusion is having a voice at that table. And bias is a part of why some voices are listened to more than others. For me, being aware of my bias was a game changer. It invites the inner work with ourselves, and it takes time. Knowing why we behave one way with some people and other way with other people. Once we have recruited a person, as Geraldine was talking about, how do we make them feel comfortable at work and feel included? Why should they even share their stories? How people treat each other, knowing our bias and working together in a newsroom will reflect the journalism we make for our listeners. So what is inclusion for us at Swedish Radio? We listen actively and contribute to a constructive dialogue. This is harder than it sounds. It sounds really easy. But how often do we actually listen to each other? To learn. Work together and learn to understand each other's roles. I know what Julia is doing. I know what Geraldine is doing. That's why we are a great team. Reflect on our own contribution. What did I do? Can I do it better next time? Reflect on your behavior. Make sure everyone has a say. We all know sometimes in our meetings where we discuss journalism, people are sitting with their hands in their pocket, looking kind of, sour. What does that person thinking about? Share with us. Have a say. And see mistakes as a learning opportunity. I've done a lot of them. But you know what? I leave them behind, move forward. Lately, I've been creating safe spaces for my colleagues in the company to talk about bias, when we feel included versus excluded. Through e-learning and workshops, we encourage coworkers to learn more about different behaviors that might affect how we do journalism. We also have courses on inclusive leadership, because that's a very important part, which is a big part of the work with diversity and inclusion, isn't it?
Yes, you hear we have a lot of successes, and as you hear, we have a lot of successes and possibilities, but we also have a lot of challenges. And we'll share some of them with you. We don't have all the answers. These are very complex, difficult questions, and perspectives can be almost everything. And we're still at the beginning of our strategy development. One of the first steps is to make these issues visible and start talking about them. When we're talking about inclusion, do we mean the same thing? What does it mean for my department? What do I need to work with? And what's the most important thing to start with in my team? It won't be the same for everyone. Changing behaviors takes time, and we don't have very much of that. We have to continuously produce and deliver. And it's hard to find time in our daily work to really reflect and lift our eyes. It takes time to become aware and to make conscious long-term decisions and to build up new networks, as Susanne was talking about. But we know that one factor for success is measuring and setting goals. And we measure what's possible regarding our content. What voices have we included? What topics do we highlight? Who is being interviewed? And to get an overall look, we annually listen to every channel during 1 week and assess it based on different parameters. For example, what different perspectives have we included?
What is harder is setting general goals connected to recruiting, for example. And Swedish laws don't allow for positive discrimination or action on any other basis than gender. So again, each manager needs to look carefully at what they need in their specific location to meet the needs of their audience and work from that space. However, we do regularly conduct surveys to monitor, for example, gender equality in the company and also look into place of birth to get an overview. And how do we know that we are an inclusive workplace? We've just begun measuring inclusion in our employee surveys to create a cultural index that we can monitor over time how inclusive we actually are perceived as an employer.
And I was talking about earlier, communication. How do we get all of our employees at a big company to know about what's going on and make it applicable whether you're working as a journalist, a technician, or an HR strategist? So we are doing a lot at Swedish Radio, and that's positive, but it can also be difficult to grasp the overall picture, and that's why coordination and communication is so important. So we told you today about some of our We'll finish off by giving you some key points to take home, and this is what helps us in our journey with diversity and inclusion. Organize your work with someone who has an overlook of what you do. That really helps. Measure and set goals wherever possible so that you know what effect your work have. Encourage long-time learning. It increases both innovation and motivation of all your employees and managers. Variation and mirroring creates ripple on the water in every context. You got to see it to believe it. It matters who is being seen and heard in both your internal and external communication. Make the work as concrete as possible. Try to show what kind of everyday behaviors makes a big. Make more conscious choices. That takes time, but it's so important. Whether it's who you're going to interview tomorrow or how you talk to a colleague in a meeting, how inclusive you are. And keep reminding everyone, because communication is really key. So if we stick to it and work methodically in the long term, we can actually succeed in reflecting all of Sweden in our radio. So starting in next year, what we want the residents in Gamlegården and people elsewhere to say when they see our pop-up car?
I would like them to feel seen and heard, and that they are a part of the society and feel important.
I'd love for people to come up and ask the journalist, how should I go about to get your job?
And I would like them to say, hey, I want to tell you my story. Thank you.
So, we have a little bit of time. Would anybody like to ask a question? Or maybe if you don't ask a question, maybe you'd like to share a story. I think what's been interesting for me hearing this is I'm sure that the experiences and all the strategies you've talked about would apply to anyone in any country, and it's totally a universal issue, and some really useful ways of thinking, I think, and behaving differently, and something we all need to take account of, I think, particularly if you're a man. I think maybe we have to think even more about it. Anybody would like to share any thoughts? Because we have got a few minutes, and it's a fairly small, intimate gathering. Who would be brave enough to put their hand up? Let's get somebody, please. If not, I'm going to come down with the microphone and grab you, I think. I might do that. I'm up to doing that, if you're not going to put... Okay, somebody here, thank you. If we get the microphone to you, can you say where you're from, please? And look forward to your contribution.
Thank you so much. My name's Sharish Kulkarni. I work at the Bureau of Investigative Journalism in the UK. I just wanted to thank you for... I've been to lots of these, and I've been on lots of these, and it's the very best presentation I've seen, because there was no talk of easy solutions, there's no talk of self-congratulation, and all the talk was about inclusion, not just diversity. So thank you so much for that. Who needs to do the work in this? Because I think quite often organisations think, oh, we'll employ black people, brown people, gay people. They can do their little stories, and that solved our diversity problem. But I don't think that's it. Other people need to do the work, I think. What's your perspective on that?
I would say that you need to have the top of your organization. I had a bias lecture for our leaders, and you have to have them in your back, because you will not be able to do any of this work if you don't have. That's why we educate like inclusive leadership, because it's so important. And as you mentioned, diversity, yeah, but how do you lead diversity? How do you even create this amazing workplace where ideas and innovation even happens? Not everybody knows what it means to actually have diversity in front of you, whatever sort of diversity that would be, and make people feel comfortable. But absolutely, we all need to do the work, but you need to have the top notch with you on this. Absolutely. They lead the way.
Yeah, great question, thank you. Who else? Who would like to contribute? I saw another hand up somewhere, but I can't see them now. Oh, there's someone over there, thank you.
Hi, it's Vincent from David. Thank you for the presentation, very enlightening, very inspiring for us. I want to know specifically, have you had any success into hiring, recruiting, or driving people in your organization to work on the tech side?
That's definitely...
in particular, women. I mean, in particular, women, people from different types of areas. That's the important part.
That's a good question. Yeah, do you want to answer?
And it's definitely a great area of focus alongside our core journalism. It's definitely driving. I mean, both with our colleagues in employer branding, myself. We have also a team, working group that works with gender diversity, and it's a huge issue. But we're definitely trying to target it from many different areas at the same time. And also experiencing, as I think everyone working in or around tech feels, that there's such a shortage just to start off with, and even more of a shortage when you're looking at at the diversity aspect as well.
Of course, we were talking a lot about our journalists, because that's our core part of the company, but we work a lot with the tech side because we need so many people there, and we have a lot of recruiting over there. But as Geraldine was mentioning, me and Suzanne, we're in a network about gender equality in the tech side. So we try to work with the same activities there, like inclusion and bias and inclusive leadership. So it's mainly the same activities, but for different target audiences at our company. Yeah.
Yeah. If I may add the comment back that with your very open, inclusive approach, you may have a great opportunity that we're a tech company, so that we don't have to attract women to work on the tech side, to attract people from different cultures to work on the tech side, because you can stand out compared to other tech companies And you need, Silabenko was saying that yesterday, you need the technology in order to compete.
Yeah, very good point. Okay, anybody else got time for one more if you have a burning question or just a comment if you have an issue or something you've discovered in your workplace, or maybe you want some help thinking about an issue. Anybody else want to add? There's someone over there. Thank you. Get a microphone to you. Can you say where you're from, please?
Good morning. I'm from the Netherlands. My name is Klaske Tameling. I'm a station manager from Radio 1, our news and sports broadcaster. I've got quite a general question about the pop-up car. How does it work? Where does it go? And maybe you can tell me something about the microwave as well.
Yeah, we have the pop-up team over here, so you can go there afterwards. And we have the pop-up cars outside, so you will have all your answers. Yeah, especially about the microwave. Yeah.
But where to go with the pop-up is, of course, very, very relevant question. And I was talking about demography. That's one step on knowing, okay, something is happening in this part of Sweden. We should go there. We should check it out. We should be there, and we should network. So demography is a good way, but that's not the only way. But it's a good way of knowing where to go.
Yeah, and to get out of the radio
houses. That's just leave the houses out. Yeah.
Leave the house. Yes, a good tip. Okay, we'll leave it there. Thank you very much for the questions. And a big thanks to Geraldine, Suzanne, and Julia. Great session. Thank you very much indeed.